All right, hello everybody out there. I'm Thomas and welcome to my channel. I do educational videos on many different topics. This is, I guess, our 41st video on the reciprocal system of theory. And this is a theory of everything, or a system of theory, developed by one Dewey B. Larson, starting way back in about 1930, up until his death in 1990. And then it was forwarded more by some of his followers up until the present day. It's a pretty obscure theory. Not too many people know anything about it. Um, but I will mention, it does have one claim to fame. If anybody's read the raw material, and the raw material is a channeled work from Carla Ruckert, and the questioner was Don Elkins. It happened back in the early 1980s, and Ra was seen as being a social memory complex, which is basically a planet with one mind, and Ra would channel his voice or its voice through Carla Ruckert, and then Don would ask Carla all these different questions, and Carla, it's 5 books that come out called The Law of One. And if you read through the raw material, Ra actually, Don Elkins asks Ra, or Carla asks Ra what Ra thinks of the reciprocal system of theory of Dewey B. Larson. And Ra says, the theory is correct insofar as it goes. It turns very ugly and dark, at the end of the raw material. I believe Don eventually kills himself, as far as I know. But Don was a follower of Dewey B. Larson's reciprocal system, and I believe he knew Larson way back in the 60s. So that is, so if you have, if you're into the esoteric or whatever, and you're like, I think I've heard of Larson, Dewey B. Larson reciprocal system before, but I can't remember where. That's probably where it comes from, the raw material. I don't know the citation. The raw material is like 5 books, and I don't remember which book that's in. But it's definitely a good read, regardless. So you might want to check out the raw material. Anyway, back to this. So now, so Larson worked on his theory and developed it to the point where he had kind of narrowed it down to 2 general fundamental postulates. And the first one is the most important one. The second one is kind of just like axiomatic. As a condition of even delving into these things, you have to, kind of accept the second postulate, or most of it. But the first postulate is that the physical universe is composed entirely of one component, motion, existing in 3 dimensions in discrete units, and with two reciprocal aspects, space and time. Okay, so the universe is not made out of matter, it's not made out of energy, but it's made out of motion. And motion is the relationship between space and time. Space and time are the same, except that they are reciprocals of each other in motion. Space and time do not exist in and of themselves, but only together in motion. And space and time are the same. Therefore, they have they both have 3 dimensions, or I would say 3 or 4 dimensions. And they both progress. Time is always getting later and later, and in the same way, space is always, things are always getting further and further apart. And then there is a minimum unit of space, and there's a minimum unit of time. 1 unit of space per 1 unit of time is the speed of light. And so at the speed of light, all of the duality kind of erases. I think maybe Perret would call that dimensional reduction, but it's just, and the space and time eliminate each other, and it just becomes one over one. And so that 1 over 1 for Larson, even though for Einstein the speed of light is the maximum speed of the universe, for Larson the speed of light is the midpoint of the universe, or the neutral area of the universe. Half the universe is moving slower than the speed of light, half is moving faster. The half that's moving slower is called sector 1 for Larson, or the physical universe. Really the he calls it the material, and then the part that's going faster than the speed of light he calls the cosmic universe, or sector 2. And then eventually he gets around to saying that life is the result of the most complex of the material units, that being DNA molecule, is finally gets to the level of complexity where it can accommodate a control unit from sector 2. And the sector 2 unit, even though it's only a small part of the overall structure, it controls the material DNA molecule. And so life is a complex sector 1 molecule come under the control of this sector 2 unit or element or entity. And then once this life unit develops to its most complex form, which he says is the intelligent human being, or maybe the intelligent humanoid, then it can come under control of what he calls sector 3, which is the sector that is independent of space and time. Maybe what I was just saying about the speed of light itself, where space and time leave off because they both kind of cancel each other out as one to one. So in the speed of light realm, it's independent of space and time, and that unit he called sector 3. Other people would probably call it God. And at that point, this sector 3 unit can take control of the most advanced life unit and direct it according to its parameters, or its what it is there to do. So instead of being motivated by survival, like a life unit, the unit under control of sector 3 is motivated by what Larson calls ethics. And so there is kind of a battle, a competition that's going on for control of the intelligent human between survival and ethics. And at some points, the ethics and survival work together to go after the same goals, but in some situations, the ethics and the survival are in competition with one another. And that's kind of the nature of our spiritual evolvement. And as I was saying, that this is exactly like a sector, a 6th sphere thing on the tree of life. Even though in my fractals, it's really like the 6th fractal of the 7th sphere, which is number 41 on my list of the 144 fractal faculties of the tree of life. So you might want to check that out. My video number 41, Tree of Life number 41. And yeah, so that's kind of where we are. Now, what Larson is doing here in chapter 10 of this book, Beyond Space and Time, which is his final book that he came out with, it came out after he died. but his foray into metaphysics. And we're in the middle of chapter 10 right here, that is on revelation. And revelation is one of the several words that he uses for a communication from sector 3. So insight, intuition, ESP, and revelation are some of the different names that have been used for what Larson is calling communication from sector 3. But he has a little bit of a summary here, and then we'll go on and talk about some of the different aspects of this, of the kind of the validity of this revelation. On the basis of the new and accurate knowledge of the physical universe, the universe of space and time, we have been able, by standard methods of inductive reasoning, to arrive at the conclusion that there is existence outside space and time, or more accurately, independent of space and time. Certain consequences of such an existence, which are highly characteristic and wholly incapable of explanation on a physical basis, have then been developed by logical means, and the existence of these consequences, in the exact forms predicted theoretically, has been verified observationally in exactly the same manner in which all other scientific findings are confirmed. The scientific verification is thus complete and positive. It is now physically certain that there is existence independent of space and time. The reality of such an outside existence is the most essential element in religious doctrine, the most important item which religion claims to have ascertained through revelation. Our scientific study, utilizing up-to-the-minute scientific knowledge, thus verifies the accuracy of religious revelation in this respect. The most basic assertions of the transcendental religions: 1, that there is existence independent of space and time; 2, that there is an aspect of human life related to that outside existence; and 3, that there is communication between the outside existence and human beings, have now been verified by the standard methods of science. So here he's talking about the transcendental religions. I think what he's talking about is Buddhism, Hinduism, I think he calls them, at another point, the circular religions. But I'm not exactly sure about that. It'll be clarified as we move on. The development of thought in the preceding pages that has led to this highly significant result was carried out strictly in accordance with scientific principles and procedures, and all the conclusions reached along the way are scientific conclusions, even though they pertain to fields which science has heretofore been unable to penetrate, and which have therefore been thought to be beyond the reach of science. The present study has been able to deal with these hitherto inaccessible subjects because it has what has previously been lacking: a complete and comprehensive general theory of the physical universe that provides a solid base from which to extend scientific inquiry into the metaphysical region. Right there, Larson is just basically pointing at the power of the reciprocal system to penetrate areas that have not been penetrated by science, and that most scientists would say is unpenetrable. But through the reciprocal system and things like extrapolation, we can move into that metaphysical region through the reciprocal system, which is one of the main reasons why I teach it, why I believe it's important to teach. Verification of these three basic religious assertions does not confirm the validity of other religious revelations. Even though our analysis shows that revelation is a powerful and potentially accurate means of obtaining metaphysical information, this does not guarantee the authenticity of any specific revelation. Nor can purported revelations be accepted on the strength of religious authority. Religious revelation is subject to the same weakness that applies to scientific revelation or insight, as it is more commonly called. That is, much of it, perhaps most of it, is wrong. Before we can accept any of the specific items claimed to have been received through revelation or any other intuitive process, it is therefore necessary to verify that item just as we would if it were a purported scientific theory. And then he goes into this philosophical discussion about kind of some of the limits and some of the roadblocks that occur in this area. Let's see. He gets into things like he does say that when there are where there is general agreement on a particular item, the case in its favor is strengthened if those who agree have strong convictions about the matter. Strength of conviction is not of much significance by itself, as many individuals tend to develop a strong attachment to any idea of importance that they may happen to hold. But when we find strong convictions combined with general agreement, particularly when we find, as we occasionally do, that almost the entire human race is firmly convinced of the validity of a certain proposition in the absence of adequate evidence to support such a belief, it is highly probable that this is a genuine item of revealed truth. I'm not convinced of that. In some cases, I think if everybody believes it, for me, that's pretty good indication that it's wrong. So, because there's propaganda out there, and I don't think Larson really looks too much into propaganda. But, usually if everybody believes it, it's most likely the result of them flooding the zone with propaganda and just putting it out there so that there's no other option. There are no other alternative beliefs. Okay, so special significance attaches to those revelations which clearly had an anticipatory character when originally received. That is, they possess some significance that was not realized until additional information was obtained long afterward. Considerable weight is attached to what are called admissions against interest, statements which the witness knows will be detrimental to him in one way or another. That's a legal doctrine, admissions against interest. He talks about other kind of mitigating aspects to the revelation. An important criterion of validity is furnished by what scientists would call a differential effect, the extent to which the item in question receives greater or less support and acceptance as the development of human society proceeds. Although progress toward conformity to ethical standards is discouragingly slow, there can be no doubt that over the long pull there is a significant advance. All too often, the human race seems to revert to savagery in some respects and in some areas of the globe. But it should be remembered that only a few thousand years ago, men were savages in all respects and in all areas. Most of the aspects of present-day life that we condemn so strongly were commonplace in the civilizations of earlier days. And I think to some extent that's a powerful truth, but to some extent maybe not. Maybe he's he's picking up on this kind of evolutionary trope of, progress, that we've always been making progress. But on the other hand, if you open up any of the ancient texts and you look at them, you see a whole lot of savagery. So, I think that's at least a point worth thinking about. Then he also gets into what he's called anthropomorphism. It'll be necessary, for instance, to be wary of any purported revelation which contains an element of anthropomorphism. That is, more or less identifying God with human qualities. And I won't say anything more about that in terms of what religions do that. The disqualifying factor here is the tendency of human beings to see human characteristics and human motives in whatever phenomena they observe, and to formulate their ideas, including those derived from insight or revelation, in human terms. Agreement between different revelations in matters of this kind, therefore, does not have the usual implications with respect to their validity. It merely indicates that all men receiving revelations receive them as men. And then he also says we also must be on guard against accepting the results of wishful thinking. And when an individual strongly desires that certain things be true, he may easily get the impression, quite sincerely, that it has been revealed to him that they are true. The hope for survival after death, for instance. So those are some of the drawbacks of the revelation. We'll get further into that next time. We'll see you later.